are live now.
Okay, so I start.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, so welcome back. And we were talking in the earlier lecture about Schrodinger picture and Heisenberg picture. Recall in Schrodinger picture, the states are time dependent. They evolve in time by Schrodinger equation, but the operators usually are time independent, except for some explicit time dependence. And just the opposite is the case for Heisenberg's picture, where the operators depend on time and the operator satisfies this equation, whereas the states are independent of time. And we got this equation, Heisenberg equation of motion, which is the equivalent of Schrodinger equation in Schrodinger picture. Now, at the end of the lecture, someone asked a very interesting question and I answered it. So I want to explain because there may be some confusion about that point. So I'll just take a slide to explain what I was saying about the eigenvalues. So eigenvalues in the two pictures. So you recall that Heisenberg is time independent because it is equal to Schrodinger picture at some times at t equal to 0. And at t equal to 0, all the pictures are coinciding. So Schrodinger picture, Heisenberg operators are this. But in Schrodinger picture, this evolves in time, and in Heisenberg picture, then this evolves in time. So consider a state in Schrodinger picture, which is an eigenstate of AS. So this is the eigenvalue A. Now, what happens is, do the eigenvalues pick up time? Or should I write as A as a function of t? No. This is time independent. This state I have to see if it is an eigenfunction of AS. It generally will not be, except if AS commutes with H. So that's the point about Schrodinger picture. In Heisenberg picture, it's the same equation as before. AS is the same as A at 0, alpha at 0 is alpha H. It's the same equation. Now, a very natural thing for some people, and I think that is the reason the student asked, AST, shall I put AT here? A as a function, this eigenvalue? No. The answer is this alpha H was the eigenstate of Heisenberg operator, which is a moving operator, only at t equal to 0. It need not be an eigenstate of AST at all. So we should not think that this is the same equation with A varying with time, small a varying. No. The point is alpha H, which is a fixed state, was eigenstate of A at 0, but it is not an eigenstate of AST and will become an eigenstate only if AH commutes with this. And these two conditions are identical. So therefore, do not get into the wrong impression that since operators are time dependent, the eigenvalues are time dependent. No, it's not the case. So I hope that clarifies the point. Now I go to the remaining point that you see, there is a connection between Heisenberg picture and classical mechanics. There is an analogy, a similarity. Of course, the two theories are entirely different, but so Heisenberg equation of motion is similar to the classical equation. So let's see the classical equation. Classical equation for any observable, which is a function of Q and P, is an explicit dependence, and then del F by del Qi, etc., etc. So it is written as Poisson bracket. Poisson bracket is a general definition of two observables. So you can put F here and H here and use Hamilton's equations. So you will get this DFT, it is this. And note the important properties of Poisson bracket. So on this page, I am doing classical physics, just reviewing classical physics. So you take Qi, Pj, the canonical coordinates and momenta. You will see that you just put it in this, you will find delta Ij. That means only if x and px, then it will be 1, otherwise it will be 0. And all q's and all p here you can see easily. If I put all q's, then one of them will be 0. And they satisfy very simple properties, which is obvious from this definition. There is nothing difficult about it. Just put a, b, and b, and you'll find a negative sign. And if c is a constant, it is 0. And if you have 2, this thing just follows from simple properties of part differentiation and so on. So these are the properties, and this is again interesting property. So this is classical physics. Now what happens to quantum mechanics. The last four properties are structurally identical to the properties of the commutator. So I had told you these properties earlier. These properties, if you replace these by commutators, they again satisfy the same property. So structurally, there is something similar, although we are talking of entirely two different theories. And even this is very similar, except for a factor of IH cross. So the last four properties are identical. And first property, that is, one, Poisson bracket is one, is also the same thing as this, except that if you replace AB by 1 upon IH cross, then it will be the same properties there. So it's quite an amazing thing that classical physics in this, with this Poisson bracket thing, structurally you get this similar equations to quantum physics, and but in the Heisenberg picture, mainly in the Heisenberg picture. Why? Because the equation 33 for classical, which was equation 33, just see, equation 33 is this. In with this prescription, with this prescription, what does it become? It becomes the quantum equation of motion for the corresponding operator in Heisenberg picture. So this is a very, very interesting and fascinating correspondence, which is formal. And Dirac suggested that, so often one doesn't know how to go from classical, say you have classical field theory or some system, you don't know what to do. So this is called Dirac prescription, and this is the way to go from classical physics. So this is a formal prescription of this. And with this lecture now gets over, and I have already acknowledged the things. So I won't take questions here because it's just a simple point. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat. And without wasting any time, I now go to the next lecture, which is actually the lecture I was due in this. So now I go to the next lecture. Yeah. So what we are going to do now, our formulation of the quantum mechanics, both in Schrodinger picture, Heisenberg picture, both in wave mechanical formulation and abstract, it's all over. So the basic formalism of quantum mechanics is over. And these lectures now, I'm going to give you some illustrative applications of this formalism. So one of the most notable applications is this linear harmonic oscillator in the Dirac formalism. We have done this so I'm going to do this, various things, contents, alternative method of solution, etc. So let's begin with this. We considered in lecture 6, we did with Schrodinger equation, and we have solved the problem. If you recall, energy eigenvalues and energy eigenfunctions being Hermite polynomials and so on. So in this lecture, we'll obtain the same results without using time-independent Schrodinger equation. And this alternative method was given by Dirac, who is noted for his very elegant work. And it is so elegant and so simple that it's worth going through for its own sake. But however, its great importance because the algebraic structure of his method of doing things has been found very useful, even in such advanced domains as quantization of radiation, etc. And that's why in fact, he did it for using his own methods. He had carried out the quantization of radiation, which we are, of course, not learning in this course. And in next lecture, I'm going to show that similar methods are used in the problem of angular momentum quantization, and we are going to see some wonderful things about angular momentum in the next lecture. So this problem is simple, and I don't think we will exceed time at all today in this lecture. It's a straightforward, very elegant method. So Hamiltonian is this. And please remember, although I'm not writing it, saying it again and again, we are talking of abstract operators. And we'll take matrix elements of them, and we'll come to the actual numbers. So these are abstract operators, half kx. The Hermitian operators satisfy the commutation relation. What are the possible energies? This is a question. And what we are going to show is just this commutator and some straightforward logic will give you the eigenvalues. I mean, this is just an amazing thing which means this commutator has so much deep information about quantum mechanics that it is just with the help of this, I can get eigenvalues of the harmonic oscillator. And we will see in the next lecture also similar things would happen based on this commutator. There are some other commutators and so on. So please understand the importance of this fundamental commutator, which is the reason it's called fundamental commutator. So we choose the energy basis. These are energy bases, labels. These are labels. These are actual numbers. H is Hermitian, so these are numbers. Our job is to find out what H is. We already know Hermitian operator will satisfy delta orthonormality and completeness. So what can we find out about Ek and K? So a couple of steps of this very elegant proof. First of all, you show that Ek cannot be negative. How do you show? Ek is the operator between K and K, the diagonal matrix element, that is the eigenvalue of this, because you know K's are eigenfunctions, eigenstates, I should say. So Hk is Ek comes out and Kk is 1. So this is why. Then you recall this Morning's identity, that I'm going to use. And so this Jj, these states form a complete set. So I put in an identity operator, that is sigma j. Similarly here. So, and now I use the fact that this quantity is a complex conjugate of this. Just take complex conjugate. I told you this morning, complex conjugate means take the cat to bra, p dagger is p because the Hermitian, and bra k becomes this. So this is a complex conjugate of this. So this is equal to the same reason here, this. Now these are positive quantities, or at most 0, it can't be negative. So Ek has to be positive or 0, it cannot be negative. So that proves this. But can Ek be 0? No, we can rule it out. Because for Ek to be 0, this is a sum of all quantities. Each one of these quantity will have to be 0 for all j. But then this commutator, there will be a contradiction. You take the commutator, this is non-zero. So you have this IH cross equation. On the other hand, if you sandwich that complete states, then each of this, we are saying let all these be 0. So this will be 0. So this way of doing it is 0, and this way of doing it is IH cross. And therefore, it's clear that Ek equal to 0 is not allowed. And therefore, we have proved, therefore, that the, excuse me. Yeah. So we have proved that Ek equal to 0 is not possible. So it has to be some positive quantity. Here we proved it cannot be negative. Here Ek is not equal to 0. So this Ek are positive. So what are these Ek? So now the way is to, usual trick is to see the commutators of x and p. So commutator of x and h, it's p square by 2m. Why have I not put the kx square term? Yeah, any answer on the chat? Why? Where has the potential term gone? Yes, please give answer on the chat. Where has the potential term gone? Any answers?
Okay, yeah. So there is one answer.
Yeah.
The commutator is 0. X with x square.
Commutator is obviously 0 because x commutes with x or any function of x. X will commute.
So actually, there are many answers the same.
Very, very good. So it is just to keep you alert and you use your knowledge that you already have already. So this is xp square. Then you use the standard identities of A, B, C, and here C is the same as BC. So you have these things. Please do these things yourself, whether it's plus or minus sign, etc. And use the commutators. So you get, so xh is P. Then take the matrix element of this. Between what have I taken? Between K and L. L is non-dummy and J is dummy. I just put it in the, so I have taken KLth matrix element of this. So K is non-dummy, L is, but I put J as the dummy. Summation, same thing here and something. So I'm taking KLth matrix element. And then it's very easy to see that, you see, HEL is going to give me EL, which will come out. And this by then LJ is going to give me chronicle delta. So some will collapse to only EL into KXL. In the same way, sum will collapse here because HK is EK. And once EK is outside, the sum will collapse. J will have to be equal to K. So again, I will get LK. So you get this equation and you get this equation. So it's really very straightforward. I'm sure all of you will be easily able to do it. Similarly, pH minus H bar. Take the KL elements and use the same procedure. You will get this equation. So from these commutators of X and P, we are getting these now. Now these are all numbers, nothing abstract about them. These are all numbers. And you're getting two quantities. I can eliminate KXL. How will I eliminate KXL? I will multiply the whole. I'll put it here somewhere and then multiply by EL minus EK and equate it to this. So if you eliminate this, you will get equation of square EL minus E square KPL is equal to, take care of the constant. There may be half KX, half K, capital K there, but omega is root K by M. I leave it, these little constant things to you. This is entirely simple. So I have got this. So I hope you have understood this, that I am eliminating KXL here, eliminating KX here. How will I eliminate? I multiply by EL minus EK here and use this equation. If I use EL minus EK, I will get EL minus EK whole square here. So that is the way you can eliminate either KP, anyone that you want, you can eliminate. So I will get this EL minus EK square, where this. Now it's the same quantity on both sides. So either, either this has to be equal to this, either KPL is 0 and KPL 0 would from the earlier equation mean this is 0, or EL minus EK will have to be 0. If it is non-zero, then you can cancel it off and EL minus EK is plus minus H cross O. But this possibility is ruled out by much the same reason as earlier. You take the commutator, take its elements. If all these elements are 0, if KL, because KL was arbitrary, you could have taken any K and any L, it was arbitrary. So if you take all matrix elements of it's against the commutator, as I showed you in the earlier slide. So this possibility is ruled out and you have EL minus EK. Thus, we have got already a very important point. And what is the important point? That this KPL is non-zero only for this possibility. So we say in quantum mechanics, the usual language is states differing are connected. Connected is just a word to say that the matrix elements are non-zero. When we say states differing in energy, H cross omega are connected, means the matrix elements of K and P between these two states are non-zero, the rest are 0. So that is the meaning of connected. So now, now from these equations earlier, you just add and subtract and with some constants, suitable constants, which is entirely algebraic steps, you will get this equation. EL minus EK is P minus L. You know about X. There are relations between X and P matrix elements. You just add them up appropriately and you will get this equation. EL minus EK is this. Now this is an incredibly good simple equation. What is it saying? It is saying, for the same reasons as before, that this will be non-zero unless EL is equal to EL minus EK is H cross omega. Clear? So EL minus EK, as far as matrix elements of X and P were concerned, they were connecting with either plus H cross omega or minus H cross omega. But this particular combination has the property that it can connect. L is here and K is here, and EL will be equal to H cross omega plus. So EL is this and EK is this. So what is EK? EK is EL minus H cross omega. So what is this doing on this state L? It is bringing it to a lower energy state and lower by spacing H cross omega. Is that clear? Just see what is EK. If it is non-zero, you cancel off. So EK is EL minus H cross omega. So it means this energy is one step lower than that step being h cross omega, lower than this. So it is an energy lowering operator, as they say. It's a very special property. It's an energy lowering operator. So this is equal to this. And unless Ek is not equal to El minus, if it is not so, then it will be zero. This matrix element will be zero. So this will not connect to any other state except one that is lower in energy. So it has a clear-cut name. It's an energy lowering operator by step h cross omega. So it's called energy lowering operator. Exactly, just complex conjugate it, and you will get this equation. This time what happens? El is equal to Ek plus h cross omega. Otherwise, this will be, if it is not so, if El is not equal to Ek h cross omega, then this is non-zero, then this will have to be zero. So it will not connect. So only, so it will be non-zero. So only when El is equal to Ek h cross omega, then this can be non-zero. Because right hand side is zero. If El is equal to Ek h cross omega, this will be zero. This can be non-zero, and this is zero. Thus, the operator will not connect a state K to any other state except the one that is higher energy. So it is energy raising operator. Now, with this, we can easily get the energy eigenstate K by this method, that you start with a K energy A. We have not yet set what these energies are. That is yet to be done. What are these energies? But we have already got the special properties of this combination of operators, which are reducing energy by h cross omega. But we still don't know what the energies are. We have not solved the problem of eigenvalues so far. But you will see now how easily it gets solved. Now you say this P minus I omega, you start with a state. It will lead to states with energy smaller and smaller. So repeated application of this cannot go on forever, because we have this starting condition that E has to be greater than zero. So we'll have to meet a state on which this operator on this state is zero. So this is the lowest state. This is please don't think it's a null vector. Sometimes there are confusions among students that this is not a null vector. This is a proper state, a quantum mechanical state. It's just being labeled by zero. Just because it is ground state is being labeled by zero. And this operator, the energy lowering operator, is going to give you zero because there's nothing below this. The logic is, if it did not happen, we didn't have a state like this, then you just go on reducing the energies, and it will go past zero, negative region, but negative region is not allowed. And therefore, there must exist a state, ground state of this energy. So how you can see how elegant is the logic. And now is how to find out? Just multiply it by P plus I omega n 1 upon 2. Just multiply it. It continues to be zero. Just multiply it out, P square, half m omega x square, and then use the commutator. Please remember, this is Px and this is Xp. They will not cancel away because Xp is not the same thing as Px. Use the commutator for Xp minus, and that will give you minus half h cross omega, because this is IH cross omega. So that will give minus h cross omega by 2. And this you identify, you know it is the Hamiltonian operator of the Hamiltonian. So problem is solved. The ground state energy is half h cross omega. Half h cross omega. Now can you tell me how to build up the eigenspectrum? We have got the result that the lowest energy state is half h cross omega. Now let's have some chat answers about how to generate other eigenvalues. Please answer on the chat how.
So there is one answer. It
Yeah.
says raising operator.
Yeah.
And then
Quite correct. Absolutely correct.
H bar omega for each state, raising operator. Yeah.
Yeah.
So raising lowering
So,
operator.
for example, if I operate it just by
That's
one
it.
P plus, that is, remember, P plus I omega. If I operate it, what state will I get? What will be the energy of that state? what will be the energy of the state if I operate it by P plus I omega x? It was energy raising, and energy raising by what? How much? That we know. We know it raises the energy. And
So
when
it
we
says 3/2 h bar omega.
excellent. And then I repeat it again, P plus I omega square. I mean, I just go on successive multiple. What am I going to generate? Obviously, half h cross omega, 3/2 h cross omega, 5/2. And lo and behold, that's exactly the eigenspectrum that we obtain in the Schrodinger method. So successive application yield states of energy differing multiples. So that's the solution of the problem.
There
This
are
is not,
correct answers on YouTube also.
sorry, there's some question.
So, yeah, no, I just told there are correct answers on YouTube also.
Excellent, very good. I mean, all the students are very good. So obviously, whether YouTube or they're answering it well. So Hn is En plus 1. It started with half h. This is the famous eigenspectrum of harmonic oscillator. We obtained it by after much labor by the Schrodinger method. We had to solve Schrodinger equation by method of power series, terminate it, etc. And look here we have just obtained it in, I think, less than 10-15 minutes. And there was nothing very hard about those steps. So that is the ingenuity of Dirac's method, that you get by other method, you get, and all what has gone into it, except the Dirac identity, of course, the very elegant Dirac identity, where you sandwich an identity operator in terms of complete set. What has gone into it? The fundamental commutator. Nothing else has gone into it except the fundamental commutator. So now how will you prove that these are, I have already unfortunately given the answer, because supposing somebody says, no, of course you have got these energies all right, but how do you know there are something not belonging to this eigenspectrum? The answer is again using these operators. Supposing somebody says, no, it's 3/2 h cross omega. Well, why not 3.2 h cross omega? What's the problem with 3. The problem is I will apply then lowering operator to 3.2 h cross omega. I know lowering operator takes it to one step, so I'll get 2.2 h cross omega, 1.2 h cross omega, 0.2 h cross omega, and 0.2. Then again I will go to negative thing, because I am not meeting this state. I will have to meet at this state where the lowering operator becomes 0. Lowering operator will not be 0 in any other state. There is only one state on which the lowering operator is defined. I mean, this state is defined to be on which the lowering operator gives you 0. So you will, any other eigenvalue, you just multiply this out repeatedly and you will go past the 0 and go to negative region, which is not allowed. So therefore, that's the reason we can say that this is a complete eigenspace. We are not missing out any. And once we do this, as you have already stated, repeated application of the operators on the ground state will give you 0. So that's the solution of, yeah. Now, there are some, maybe I'll stop at this point for some questions, because I think we have ample time for this. Any question or any step that you did not follow? Please feel free to ask this or anything else.
No question anywhere yet, sir.
No questions?
No, not yet.
Okay, so maybe I'll ask you some questions. Okay, when I write this, is it correct to write P as minus IH cross d by dx? Yes or no? Let us answer this question. Is it correct to write this P as minus IH cross d by dx? You learned in wave mechanics, no? That my momentum operator is minus IH cross d. Correct or incorrect?
Okay, one says correct. Yes.
Any other?
All are yes. So many yeses.
All are saying yes. So I think the answer is no, a definitive no.
Okay, one no is there. One said no.
Yeah, why not? No is the correct answer. Why not? Any answer for why not?
No, not yet.
Okay. Anyway, I'll give you the answer. The answer is that this is abstract operator. Abstract operator are not to be equated to their wave mechanical counterparts. These are abstract operators. Since I am dealing with Dirac states, that's why I don't have to keep emphasizing. These are abstract operators, X and P, etc. Don't equate them to a minus IH cross. It is meaningless to write minus IH cross d by dx on an abstract cat. But it is very meaningful to write it on a wave function size. But this is not a wave function, as I emphasized this morning. Wave function is a representation. When I take this thing and put a bra x on the left, that will be the wave function. And if you operate p on that, that will be a minus IH cross d by dx. So please be very sensitive to whether you're talking of abstract states or you're talking of wave functions. A lot of people don't do this, and probably they will not go wrong because the notation is so well built, I mean, etc. That at the end of it all, people will get it correct. They may just replace. Another way of saying it is, well, I don't care about how to get it. This is an abstract equation. The counterpart of this 0 is psi of x. Then the counterpart of p is minus IH cross. It's a counterpart. P is not minus IH cross. And do not think it's just a mathematical nicety. It is a very vital that you understand that these are abstract operators, these are abstract wave functions. If 0 was just the ground state function psi 0, then what was the point of this abstract notation? Then it would just become just a decorative symbol to write 0 for ground state psi 0. No, psi 0 is not this. Psi 0 is a wave function of x. This is an abstract cat. So please understand this point. So these are you will get, and thus we have obtained the Capri. Now, just further elegance of this method. Dirac found out, these are operators which we have already understood what these operators are doing. So with but these are dimensions, so they have dimensions and so on. Obviously, they have to have the same dimension. Dirac suitably defined operators. In the sense that then these operators, the commutation relations between various things become very simple. You see, you can take the commutation relation of A Dagger. It's very easy to find px commutation, xp commutation. Do it yourself at home. I mean, you are at home, so whenever you have in your study room, you do it. So use the commutators of x and p, and you will find A Dagger equal to 1. So this is just elegance, further elegance. So Dirac had I must digress to say, Dirac had a tremendous eye for elegance of equation. And he's made a statement which was actually controversial. He said that the equations of physics better be elegant. It's more important to have equations of physics look beautiful than accord with experiments. That's a very controversial statement. I won't advise you to go by that. I mean, experiments are the most important physical, without that you cannot do physics. But he had so much emphasis on the aesthetics and the elegance of the equations that he made that statement, which of course we should just take it in the spirit that he made, not literally. So, and in terms of A and A Dagger, you know that p square by 2m plus half kx square, you just multiply A Dagger A, you will get the same thing, p square by 2m plus half m square and plus half h cross omega. That is the these are dimensionless quantities. So obviously A Dagger A cannot be enough. There is a dimension of energy. So Hamiltonian operator in A Dagger A is this. All this is nothing mysterious. You just multiply A Dagger A, you will get half p square by 2m plus half k or half m omega square x square, the usual thing, and another plus half. So you have to do that. And in all these steps, the fundamental commutator will be necessary. And now we know its eigenvalues are n plus half h cross omega. So A dagger A its eigenvalue will be, these are energy eigenstates, but energy eigenstate for A dagger A gives you just n. This is why it is called number operator. It's called number operator for a reason which is in more advanced domains. It actually means number of something, but here number is just how many steps up the ladder from half h cross omega. The first n equal to 1 will be 3 by 2 h cross omega, n equal to 2, etc. So this is a number operator. So this is mere elegance. We are doing no more physics than what we have already finished. So that is the thing. And now consider n A dagger A, sandwich the Dirac identity. What will this sum will contribute? Which value of n dash will contribute? It's obvious that except for n dash equal to n minus 1, nothing will. I mean, the sum will collapse to n dash equal to n minus 1. Why? Can people tell why? Why is the sum just getting equal to n? N dash is just n minus 1. What happened to other values of n dash? Yeah, answers?
Nothing yet.
Huh?
Nothing yet.
Yeah, just wait.
Yeah.
Why does this sum?
Okay, one answer says orthogonal of different states. So orthogonality of different states, I think.
No, orthogonality here doesn't come in the picture.
No, nothing else yet.
Doesn't come. I'm repeating.
No, okay, there is one answer on YouTube.
Yeah.
As A dagger on n minus 1 gives n.
Yeah. Very good. Or A gives you n to n minus 1. N is the step. So n minus 1 will have one half, not half, h cross omega down in energy. So if this energy is something, this will have h cross omega less. But that is precisely what A does. A is the lowering operator with some overall coefficients. A is those ladder operators. Please see again, what was this ladder operator? Nothing but this. But we have seen its property. It lowers it can connect one state to one lower and nothing else. It can't connect to any other state. We have proved that already. So therefore, A can connect only. What does mean connect to n minus 1? If I put n minus 2, this matrix element is 0. Actually, the sum is running over.
I think they have some understanding problem because there is another answer saying orthonormality. So
no, there is a question of orthonormality.
Sure.
The orthonormality, of course, is always there, but it is the property of A and A dagger which is coming into this. Is the property of A. What does A do? Or what are the matrix elements of A? Which matrix element of A is non-zero? Actually, the sum is running over from 0 to all the possible states, 0 to infinity. Because the discrete eigenvalues of are 0 to infinity. This sum is going from 0 to infinity. Why does it only take the value n minus 1? This is because if I put n minus 2, this A operator, n, this matrix element will be 0. It's only n dash equal to n minus 1, the two things match. For example, A dagger will take n minus 1 to n, so nice, and it can't do anything else. A dagger to n minus 1 cannot take it to n. So that is the point. So this is n minus 1, so this is n minus 1, so A dagger. Orthonormality, what you are saying, can come in the sense that you see an is n minus 1 with some coefficients, and n dash is n minus 1, n dash and n minus 1. Only by orthonormality, n dash will have to be equal to n minus 1. You can say it that way. Orthonormality is always there, it's ever present. You may say, if I want to use argument using orthonormality, I should say an is proportional to n minus 1. And here is n dash. N dash with n minus 1, because of orthonormality, everything will be 0 except when n dash is equal to n minus 1. So the answer that orthonormality is coming is Well taken. That's not wrong. But I mean, you should first state the main point that an is proportional to n minus 1, nothing else. An takes it to only n minus 1 with some coefficients. That's all. So that is the point. So that is the step. So n will be this. This is just an eigen state of this operator. So this is n. You have this, and this quantity is complex conjugate of this. So this is equal to. So therefore, we have got, you take square root of this. So you got this. Take its dagger. If you take the dagger, means complex conjugate. This is root n. So root n remains a complex conjugate. I told you this morning the recipe. N cat becomes n bra. A becomes a dagger. And bra n minus 1 becomes this. So this is root n. Of course, up to a phase, because we said only about the modus. We have obtained result on the mod square. So obviously there is a choice left, and generally the choice is that you just take the real thing, e to the power I alpha, e to the power you just 1. So that's the meaning of up to a phase. Now finally, now I'll explain to you why I said that how to go from abstract operators to the standard wave mechanical wave functions. Now this is abstract equation. And now for clarity, because now I'm going to mix wave mechanics, that's why I have put capital P in capital, just to tell you that this first equation is all abstract operators. Now, whenever you want to go to representation, what's the trick? Just take a bracket with the eigenbasis. If you wanted momentum eigenbasis, you will take P here. But I'm interested in coordinate eigen because I'm interested in the usual coordinate space equation. So I put X here. Then what I do here, I sandwich an identity operator. I sandwich an identity. Now, whatever you people thought was correct. P between X dash and X, we have seen the abstract operators, matrix elements are the wave mechanical operator into delta. In an earlier slide, if you see lecture 8, go through lecture 8 carefully. This abstract operator between the matrix elements. See, one point you have to realize is that there's nothing abstract about matrix elements. Everything is abstract as long as you don't take matrix element. The moment you take matrix element, you sandwich these things, and now this will become the standard minus IH cross. This is a wave mechanical operator, this. Similarly, X abstract operator between X dash is just no abstraction. Now this is X and a delta function. And this is the wave function. This is nothing but wave function. Please don't get confused by this symbol. Symbol is just ground state. I could have written it G. Don't confuse this 0 with this 0. This is a ground state of the harmonic oscillator. So the G state, and this morning we saw how to go from abstract to concrete wave function. Just bracket it with the coordinate basis. This is the psi 0 X that we talked in wave mechanics when we did Schrodinger equation for the ground state. Okay, now you use the delta function property and you get it. This is wave mechanical equation. Now nothing abstract about it. And what is this? The ground state wave function. This is the ground state wave function. And you get this. Now this is standard. We have come back just a new notation. I could have written as psi 0x, psi 0x. And this is rather easy to solve. And you get the ground state wave function. It's identical to what we got earlier, except today we are writing at 0x. On that day, we would have written as psi 0 of x. So this is the wave mechanical wave function. You can use normalization condition. This is even the abstract vector. This norm is 1. You sandwich it between, sandwich a Dirac identity operator. Now what is 0x? This is psi x. And what will this be? Psi star x. Because inner product, you remember, if inner product you change the order, it becomes complex conjugate. So this is psi 0x, this is psi 0 star x. So this is psi 0x mod square dx, and it has to be 1, as you all know, from minus infinity. So using this, you can get A0 and you can get this. This is identical to the result that we obtained in the earlier lecture for the ground state wave function. Of course, this one was very easy. To build up higher coordinate requires a little more mathematics, and this bit hard, so I have not done it. If you wish, you can look at the books to build up. Actually, you can build up all the wave functions. But for me, it was a illustrative application of how to go from abstract vector space to coordinate vector space. So this is what I have done. And yeah, so in fact, the lecture is over and we have enough time today. So please feel free to, but before I do, let me complete my acknowledgements. This is based on my notes last year, and which were turned into slides by Professor Amol Dighe. And this is L Schiff, basically. And I once again thank my friends Galvi and Mazumdar, Anvesh Mazumdar, for their support. Now I will go back to these steps. If you have any problems with any, please tell me. We have enough time. Actually, today we have enough time. So please shoot off questions, whatever you feel like. Don't worry whether they belong to this lecture or general questions on physics, whatever you wish to. But of course, you restrict to quantum mechanics course that I am doing. And please be warned, if you don't ask questions, then I'll ask questions. So you have to make the choice.
Okay, there is one question.
Yeah.
Can you please repeat the explanation of steps in slide 14?
Slide 14.
So,
Very good.
yeah.
Slide 14. Oh, once again, the same thing. Yeah. Now I'll ask you questions and then you, what is A? What is A? A is, as in the earlier slide says, A is just proportional to this operator with some constants. They have been taken care for dimensions. So just don't get confused by these factors. These are only for convenience, so that the commutators look nice. If, for example, I just had commutation of this and this, there will be some very complicated factors on the right side. You see, constants are not going to change the basic character of this, right? But there will be some, not so nice looking constants. So you have taken this thing so that it becomes constant one. So this entirely for convenience. There is no physics in it. But the physics is, this operator is energy lowering operator. So now what is the question? This is energy lowering operator. And what is its character? It lowers energy by merely one step. That is the only state it can go to. A of n can go only to n minus 1. Forget the summation. What does, if I were to write an as some ket, what will that be ket? Proportionality constant may be something else. But what will that ket be? An. Can you answer what will be the ket an? What will be the ket an? Please answer. I mean,
nothing yet. Yeah, nothing yet. But
what will be
n
the
minus 1 ket?
Very good. I mean, I think
same person.
I think you all know it. It's just your, I mean,
yeah, lots of people.
You are not speaking out.
Correct.
I'm sure every one of you know that the lowering operator n is taking it to n minus 1 with some proportionality constant. Don't worry about overall proportionality constant. It is taking it to n minus 1. Okay. Now there is a summation n dash. And there is now this n minus 1. Now I am using the arguments of one of your colleagues only, one of the students only, who was constantly talking of orthonormality. Now, or orthogonality. Now this is n dash, bra n dash, and this is n minus 1, ket n minus 1. Now, what's the substance of orthogonality? That unless these are the same states, different states, their brackets are zero, their inner products are zero. Bra and cat is nothing but inner product of two cats, as I saw this morning. So this bra n dash on n minus 1 is nothing but the inner product of n dash cat and n minus 1. Now two cats, when will they give you non-zero value? Obviously when they are the same. Correct? If the cats are different, their energy eigenvalues.
Okay, yeah, she said she got it.
Yeah. The eigenvalues of n dash is n minus 1. Remember the famous property. Eigenvalue, eigenfunctions, eigenstates of a Hermitian operator with different eigenvalues always are orthogonal. What does one mean by orthogonal in the today's Dirac notation? It means this bracket. So n dash, bra n dash and n minus n is equal to 0 unless n dash is the same thing as n. Clear? So I think she has understood it, right? Yeah. Anything else?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. She told you.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Anything else?
So, okay, there was another question here.
Yeah.
Can you please explain why ladder operators are also called creation and annihilation operators?
Oh, good. That is a good question, and that question takes us to beyond quantum mechanics. It comes to I remarked in the beginning that Dirac found this method of A and A dagger, which here had very simple meaning, energy raising, lowering operator. What he found was that in electromagnetic field, when he Fourier decomposed the electromagnetic, he wanted to quantize electromagnetic field. And so when he Fourier decomposed the electromagnetic field, then what happens? The Fourier coefficients, which are nothing to do with these oscillators, etc., they are actually k, they are functions of k. Those Fourier coefficients, their time variation of those coefficients is like simple harmonic. So that is known in classical physics. That is classical field theory. So what Dirac did was, as a heuristic means as a great guesswork, what he said was, look here, classical field A's are giving simple harmonic time dependence. Now I will just postulate that A becomes operators in quantum mechanics when we want to do quantum field theory. A becomes operators. And they said A become operators and they have exactly the same dependence as these A's here. And therefore, he said that they will say, and he postulated the same commutation relations that we got here. Here there is no postulate. What is the commutation relation here? For simple harmonic oscillator that we are doing, we have derived it using the fundamental commutator. What he did was he postulated, because he was doing a new theory. He postulated it. Then here A dagger A, here n is the number of steps in the energy ladder today for us. But then what happened? The field state there. This n shows the number of quanta photons. So A dagger A became the number of quanta of photons, and the interpretation of A was this operator annihilates or destroys one photon, and A dagger. So in field theory, in today's quantum mechanics, n was just energy eigenstates 1, 2, 3, etc. And there was an energy ladder which this A and A dagger were going up and down. In quantum field theory, in quantum theory of radiation, n denotes the number of photons in that state, in the radiation state. And this is, of course, it tells you how many number, and these operators tell you that from number of photons, and which operator takes you to a field state with one photon less. So this is an absorption operator, and this is a creation operator in that theory. So that's the analogy. So, but however, I don't think you should worry, at least in QM course, about quantum theory of radiation. That's a completely different subject. And whereas here I have proved it, there it's a postulate. Please remember, when you go from go from unknown to known. You can't derive it. You have to postulate, you have to make good guesses. So he postulated it. He got quantum theory of radiation, and it did such wonderful results. It explained spontaneous emission, stimulated emission. It explained the Einstein coefficients. The theory was so brilliantly successful. So it was accepted as the way to quantize radiation. It could have been wrong. His postulates could have been wrong because he was just guessing, but it did not. What happened was it got the quantum theory of radiation. So the first successful quantum theory of radiation was created by Dirac in 1927, I think, using these ideas. But beyond that, I don't think we should go in today's course about quantum theory of radiation. Read some books. There are numerous books on quantum theory of radiation. Any other question more related to this?
So there is one question on YouTube.
Yeah, whatever.
So
Yeah.
it says, why do we require bracket notations? So it's far away from the radiation quantization.
Why do we
Question.
require
This bracket notation at all?
Bracket notation has to do with quantum mechanics, nothing to do with quantum theory of radiation.
No. The question is like, why do we
need it?
Need this? Exactly.
I motivated you in the beginning. Dirac notation. It is an extremely useful notation. I will have to go to lecture 9. No, this is lecture 10. You want me to just give me a minute? I will. So is there any problem with the harmonic oscillator? Then I will go to Dirac notation for 2 minutes. Any question on these slides? Yes or no?
Okay, so there is one question right now. So can A and A dagger be represented in matrix form?
Yes, of course. Very good question. Yes, it will be an infinite matrix. You take matrix element between n and n dash. It will not be diagonal. Do you understand? It will not be diagonal matrix because A of n doesn't take it to n. A of n takes to n minus 1. So there will be a matrix element of diagonal matrix. Just one other, close to diagonal, but one of diagonal elements. And yes, you can write it down. It will be an infinite matrix, a discrete matrix in this case, because the states are discrete. So it will be an infinite matrix, which is not diagonal. Very good question. Similarly, A dagger. And then you tell me what will be A dagger is matrix representation in the same energy eigenstates. When you talk of matrix representation, please complete the sentence with respect to which basis. So I assumed you are talking of energy basis.
So shall we ask her to unmute and say? Otherwise, it's
yeah.
Okay. So if you people want, you can just unmute and give the answer. So it's easier.
It takes a long time. Basically, I think you should take the chat question because we don't have time.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah. It takes a long time for everyone.
So
no, I'm asking the question right on the chat. What is the matrix representation of A dagger A?
No answer.
What is the
diagonal matrix A dagger A? Yeah.
And what are the eigenvalues? Very good. Diagonal. What are the eigenvalues?
Just written diagonal. So
no, diagonal is fine, but diagonal means
n. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to
0, 1, 2. One person wrote 0 also.
Yeah, 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to infinite. That is the matrix representation. So you have understood clearly the meaning of matrix representation of any operator. All that you have to do is take the operator, sandwich it, take the matrix element, see which are zeros, see which is non-zero. Whatever is non-zero, put the values there. Whatever is zero, you put those matrix elements 0. That's all. That is the meaning of matrix representation of this thing. Okay. Anything else? I think I will not go to lecture.
No, sir. I think so. The time is almost up. It's 4 o'clock.
Yeah, we are almost through. We will not go.
Yes,
but
sir.
Dirac notation, you please go through. Now you ask the question: what is the point in bracket notation? The point was there was no necessity. You could have just lived with vectors, the cats. you had defined inner products. After all, in lecture 8, we just lived with vectors. We did not discuss linear functionals. But it was just a tremendous notational convenience that in this case, if it is a bracket, it's a nice number. It's a number. If it's bra on the left, operator in the middle, and cat on the right, then it's a number. If you flip the order, if you put cat first and then bra, it becomes an operator. And in terms of this new operator, first cat, then bra, the completeness is so nicely represented. So it has great notational convenience, a great notational convenience. But Dirac notation is not necessary. If you can do whole of quantum mechanics, including abstract quantum mechanics, without Dirac notation. But all of you should know it, because there will be rarely a book. I have told you the great outstanding exception is Weinberg. There will be rarely a book which will not use Dirac notation. And it is so common to physicists, so common everywhere, that it's better to understand that notation very well. Yeah. What else?
Okay, so there is
Yeah.
one question. So is it possible to get energies of a classical harmonic oscillator by using linear combinations of ladder operators?
No. Classical these things are all operators. Classical energies are, first of all, they are completely continuous. How can you get discrete energies? Classical harmonic oscillator energy is half, all of you know, they're half k into amplitude square, and there is no constraint on amplitude in classical physics. So classical physics oscillator is a completely different problem. You don't have discrete energies for classical oscillator. Classical oscillator has continuous energies. Next, any other question?
And there are two very not on this topic at all kind of question. So do you want to answer them now, or we will just
speak out the question? I'll see.
Okay. So one is, sir, I am asking about previous lecture, why we say box and veil in potential veil and potential box. As I know, it might be nucleus, but I want to know from you.
Why do we use the word box?
Yes.
Yes, because I have answered it on the chat. If you please go through the answers that we are giving. See, we take a long time to answer those questions. We give answers very carefully.
So sir, I think they cannot access the Moodle site.
No, they have access. They have access.
Yeah. Please go through
it's on YouTube.
Yeah, they have. Those answers are also copied on YouTube. They have access to all the answers.
Box, I have answered that. Box is just because somebody likes that, that potential graph, it looks like a box. So please do not worry about words that physicists use. Go by their deeds, as once a great physicist advised. Go by their deeds, that is their mathematics, and of course their physics. Don't go by words that they choose. Now we have chosen ladder. Don't worry about why is it called ladder. Well, it's a nice suggestive word. It's a ladder it's an energy ladder, but don't worry, don't fix your attention on words. See what these operators are doing. So box, well, why call it well? It looks like a well. It's called well. You can use an uninteresting term given this one-dimensional potential of this following shape. It will sound a little uninteresting, that's all. So say well, and also note that rectangular well and square well mean the same thing. There's no difference between rectangular well and square well.
And sir, there is another question here. So you once mentioned that there is close relation between the orthogonality of the wave functions in quantum mechanics and that in Euclidean space. Can you explain that, sir?
Oh yes, because orthogonality of wave functions, how did we define? F star x, gx, and if it is 0, then f and g are orthogonal. How do we define perpendicularity of two vectors? A dot b equal to 0, that is perpendicular, correct? Now these things, both A dot b equal to AB cos theta and inner product of wave function f star g, both satisfy the abstract properties of inner product given by mathematicians. See lecture 8. Both satisfy the inner properties. So the geometrical meaning AB cos theta and integral f star g dx are just two examples of the same abstract property in a product. Inner product is linear of the right hand side, and the left hand side it is there's a star because in three vectors it is a real vector space, and quantum mechanics vector space is complex. So therefore there is a change as far as star is concerned. So when I say it's the same thing, it obviously doesn't mean literally the same. It means it follows structurally, it follows as examples of the same underlying deeper mathematical structure and definition. Vector space. That's what I meant by it. That is how mathematicians unify two apparently different looking things. Now, very important example of this is the Cauchy identity, Cauchy inequality, Cauchy inequality, which was proved for any vector space. Now, when you take that identity and use it for three-dimensional vectors, it simply means a square b square cos square theta is always less than equal to a square b square. It's as simple as this. But here, for function space, it means f star g dx whole mod square is less than equal to f mod square dx into g mod square dx. So this is an integral inequality. If you did not know that it follows, so actually it is structurally the same as a square b square cos square theta is less than ab. So that's the depth of abstract mathematics, that it seems to see the same structure between two examples which just have nothing to do with each other. So that's what it is. So don't think the orthogonality of function space is the same thing as orthogonality of three dimensions. No, it's not the same thing. Obviously, we're talking of entirely different things. It has the same structural property. It is examples of the same underlying structure, namely the abstract vector space. I think we are nearly complete. So I think I was told to not to go beyond. So it is 4:07. So I should stop, and thank you very much for all your attention. And we are closing a few minutes before 4:10. Is that all right, or you want another question or something? Whatever you please.
So there is no more question.
Yeah.
So regarding that classical harmonic oscillator,
Yeah.
so there is, so she says that, so does it mean that we cannot get energies of coherent states of harmonic oscillator representing classical harmonic oscillator behavior using linear combinations of ladder operators?
Say it again, I didn't follow.
So you answered that one cannot get the classical harmonic oscillator
Yeah.
things from the quantum mechanical approach.
That is obvious. Classical oscillator has continuous energies. Quantum oscillator has discrete energies. So it's fundamentally different. This description is different. The description of classical oscillator is X and P. The description of a quantum oscillator is by its wave functions or by abstract states. So there is no connection between the two. So there is no question of taking.
Professor Kumar, if I may, sorry. Yeah. I think the confusion is that what does superposition mean? I think the student thinks that superposition of discrete values can lead to any arbitrary continuum distribution. I think that is a basic misconception.
That's a very good question. The average values can be continuous. See, when there is a discrete system, the average values can be anything you like. So average values are obtained by superpositions. So by suitable superposition, you can get any values. So if you have that in mind, that's the answer. So there is no discretization of expectation values in quantum mechanics. You can superpose the energy states. There will be some energy value even for this oscillator. The average value of a superposition of energy eigenstates of oscillator need not be one of these. It can be anything you like. So I think that is what probably she has in mind. Yes, if you have in mind that can I get somehow continuous values, the answer is not from the energy states, but if you take superpositions, the expectation value in that superposition can be anything you like. It depends on what coefficients you multiply with these. And since there is complete arbitrariness in the coefficients, you can get any energy eigenvalues. I'm sorry, I didn't get it. It's a good point, very good point. Yeah.
No, I also don't get it
it's very good.
The question, but yeah, might be that's good.
Okay, so I think we stop here now at this point. It's 4:10 and we stop. Okay, so we meet again tomorrow. Thank you all very much. Yeah. So I will stop the screen. And can I leave now?
Yes. We can stop the streaming and the recording.